Very good. I'd like to call to order the Historic Site Preservation Board. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Sespak? Help me out.
Chespak, present.
Okay, sorry about that. Mr. Rush?
Present.
Mr. Scott?
Present.
Mr. Williams?
Present.
Mr. Isserman?
Present.
The other two members are absent.
Okay. Can we have the report of the posting of the agenda, please?
The agenda was posted last week in accordance with state and local procedures.
Okay. Public comments. It doesn't look like we have any public comments. So we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the meeting of September 10th. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes? I would like to say these are the most extensive minutes we've ever received. Thank you, Loretta.
And I cut 5 pages.
If there are no comments, can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move that the minutes be approved.
Second.
Can we have a voice vote on that?
Yes?
All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Next, the chairman's report. I guess all we really have to report on is we had a visit to Louise's Pantry. Vice Chairman Bill Scott and I and Doug Evans and Jing visited the pantry, and there was a discussion about the restoration of an awning on the, I guess that's the west side of the building. There is in place a very deteriorated galvanized steel and I guess plaster and wood awning, which is really not restorable itself, and we had an on-site discussion on what the best solution for that awning would be, and we accepted their proposal of leaving the awning intact and skinning it with a new copper skin. So underneath the what could be the original awning will remain and will just be covered to protect it and, you know, mimic the exact shape of it. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's just if I could add a little bit, and looking at the photos that we have on this particular property, the oldest photo that we have, at least in our file that we put our fingers on quickly, basically there appeared to be an aluminum type canopy over that element, so it was hidden. The old original little canopy was hidden by this element. It actually looked like a canopy that would be more akin to the design of a mobile home. Looked like just something thrown up. And then more recently, probably in the 80s and early 90s, there was a canvas awning that basically hid this. And in taking a look at the building and the way it was, we felt that probably the best thing to do would be to cap the old with something that's new and a little bit different. We're going to ask that they acid wash the copper so that it basically will get the patina finish as fast as possible. So it will turn into a green mottled type color over time. And once it's been acid washed, that process goes pretty quick. I can assure you when it first goes up, we'll probably get some phone calls. Why did we put this shiny copper thing up there? I mean, the other alternative would be to come back in and put up a sheet metal type structure and then put a patina finish on it, which is a painted finish. And we felt that really going to something that's going to have an aged weathering effect and it will continue to age and weather with time would probably be the best solution. But just as when most copper roofs go on, it will be somewhat bright and shiny and reflective. It will temper fairly quick with time, particularly if it's acid washed. And that's what we're working with them on at this point. And just as another aside, we've been looking at a sign for the proposed new restaurant. and we're basically working with the old sign style, and basically had a band across the bottom with letters mounted on it, with lighting behind, and we're basically trying to get the same style of sign put up on the building, so we'll have that same character, although with a brand-new business advertised. And the business is intended to be an Italian restaurant, and if you haven't been by the property, the tile that was removed is being replicated, so the little 4-inch tiles will be put back, and what we're going to try to do is put all the original tiles in one location, and then with a break, probably one of the doorways, we'll then have the remanufactured tile. And the developer's been working with 2 different companies to make sure that they get an accurate tile representation, both in design and color. And the first batch they rejected because the color wasn't true. So they've been very careful to try to get as close a match as possible, since a bit of that tile was destroyed inadvertently. That's an update on that one, and we appreciate the chairman and vice chairman coming out on short notice. That's real important when you have a construction project, that we try to work with the flow of the project, because they're at this point trying to get this restaurant open here in the next probably 30 days.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say I really appreciated getting the phone call, because whenever possible, we'd like to have our input. I know sometimes the staff has to make these decisions, but when it's at all possible, it's great to have some representative from the board there. Okay, we have no public hearings scheduled, so we'll move right to the agenda items. Agenda item number 1 is a discussion of the city's historic preservation ordinance. And I guess I'll turn that over back to you, Doug.
Well, I'm going to, if it's the board's pleasure, I'm going to just keep that as an agenda item, so that if you have any questions, concerns, or thoughts about the ordinance, we can discuss it. We don't have anything additional to add. As I've indicated before, in your work program, one of the items is to update the ordinance. And as the board settles in and we get staff settled in, we'll put that on probably more of a study session workshop, where we might go through the ordinance with the city attorney. But that'd probably be better as a workshop as opposed to a regular meeting. And that way we can just sit in a much more informal type setting. It's still a public meeting. And typically what the board has done is they have their regular business. They adjourn into a workshop type setting, and then we bring the city attorney in and talk about some of the ranges of issues and concerns with the current ordinance.
Thank you. Member Scott, can you give us an update on the Preservation Foundation?
I'd be happy to. I've passed out the press release that was issued by the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation. So get out your Hawaiian shirts and your grass skirts. The weekend of November 1st to the 3rd is Desert Polynesia, a tiki weekend in Palm Springs. It begins on Friday the 1st at Toucans, which is a tiki lounge on North Palm Canyon. From 5 to 7 p.m. there'll be registration, reception, and book signing. Then it will continue.
Mike.
On Friday evening from 5 to 7 p.m. will be a reception at Toucans, and then it will continue from 7 to 9 in association with the Bureau of Tourism and the North Palm Canyon Merchants as the first Friday Tiki event. Saturday, November 2nd from 2 to 4 will be an architectural tour, including a tour of the Royal Hawaiian Estates. And from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Caliente Tropics, a luau reception with lecture, slideshow, and performances. And then on Sunday, November 3rd, from 1 to 4 p.m. At the Camelot Theater will be a Polynesian Film Festival, including screenings of Hawaiian Eye and other Paradise-themed shows. There'll be a tour book and a self-guided architectural map, and we would encourage all people who are interested in this to attend and to look up on the site, the website, which is pspf.net. It will give you more information about the celebration. And there will also be information placed throughout Palm Springs, including the North Palm Canyon Merchants Association. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a comment.
Yes.
A number of years ago, the Homeowners Association, and I'm pretty darn sure it was the Royal Hawaiian Estates, wanted to redesign their project and make it look contemporary. They thought it was dated and that they wanted to move away from that design, and the Design Review Board at the time discouraged them from even thinking about it.
Thank God. I didn't realize that was a Wexler Harrison
That's right.
design complex. That's news to me.
They must have gone to Hawaii for a little holiday in
Yeah,
1959 or 60.
that's great. Okay, Member Williams, can you give us an update on the Palm Springs ModCon?
Could you pass these around to the other members?
Oh,
I thought I'd give a quick overview of the ModCom committee for those who may not be familiar with it. The official name is the Palm Springs
Thank you, sir.
Modern Committee. The group has approximately 100 members, and the dues are $25 a year. The group meets once each month on the second Saturday of the month at Modern Way, which is one of the modern furniture stores here in town, at 2755 North Palm Canyon Drive. And the public is welcome, visitors are welcome. The meetings are usually at 10 o'clock in the morning and last till about noon. The last meeting was on the 14th of September. The next meeting is this Saturday, October the 12th, again at 10 o'clock at Modern Way, 2755 North Palm Canyon. Probably the group's greatest accomplishment so far is the development of a map of modern Palm Springs, which each of you has a copy of right now. The map has been very well received. 2,000 copies were printed and 800 have been sold at $5 a piece. They are available at the Palm Springs Visitor Centers, both of them on Palm Canyon. The group has tours of modern buildings of interest to its members when possible. For instance, this Saturday after the meeting on North Palm Canyon, there is a tour of the upper and lower tram stations from 12:30 to 2:30, and that's being hosted by Tony Murchell, who is, he's an authority on modern architecture from Los Angeles. He's a professor at one of them, I forget which one, but anyway. The group is also planning a tour of modern homes in January. A lot of members of the group own modern homes, and many of those will be open in January, so look forward to that. And lastly, but certainly not least, the group is active in helping its members when they want, or the public, to get Class 1 designation for their properties if they're interested. The group was very active in helping get the Class 1 status for the Miller House, which was just designated, the Richard Nortra design from 1937. And Catherine Miller, who is the owner, is an active member of the ModCom group. So, that completes the report.
great. Thank you very much. I guess we'll hand the item number 5 back to Doug. It will be the review of the Form A and Form B.
Jane, do you want to give an overview of those forms?
This is in response to a request from the last meeting. There was a request from members that they wanted clarification on the difference between Form A and Form B. So you have them in front of you now. It's in your handouts here, they look like that. Essentially, Form A is just documenting the resource, really. It's the basic information that's required for listing on the California Register. It's not really a narrative description, it's more of just stark, straight-up description, looking at address, name, just a physical description of the resource in terms of design, materials, and condition. You're just trying to really distinguish, what makes the resource distinctive. With the second form, the Form B, which is the building structure and object record, it's a more detailed evaluation of the historical resource. And, beyond the construction history, as you can see there, the most important part really of this form is B10, which talks about the significance or the period of significance regarding the resource. It's a more narrative description, and the difference here between really the major difference between two forms is in Form B, you're evaluating the significance of the resource and the integrity, and in this case, integrity is defined as the authenticity of the resource, how much of it was left over from the period that made it significant. So it's really the part of the record that makes or breaks whether or not this gets on the register. It's really the chance to justify, why this should be on the California Register. So that's really the basic difference.
That's fine. Do we have any questions?
And if you note, on these forms, we're currently working on the Francis Stevens School as part of an application to try and evaluate whether or not it should be on the state registry. And then that would open us up to receive grant funds for that particular property. Our number one objective in taking a look at that issue is the grant funding to try and do some restoration of the building. As most of you know, the roof tile that's on portions of the building is less than period and authentic. Secondly, the roof has some deflection in it, and we know that we have to go in and rework the roof structure no matter what sometime in the future. And there's a few other items that we'd like to try to fix inside the building that are structural or just safety oriented. I describe, old buildings like this as owning a yacht. You love to own them, you love them a lot, but they're very expensive. And, the city's spent a lot of money on this property, and we're taking a look at whether or not we can take advantage of some grant funding. The preliminary feedback from SHPO is that it's going to have very good standing at the state level, considering the design of it, the history of it, a lot of the activities, and the fact that it has a broad range of historical as well as contemporary uses that make the property very relevant from a historic standpoint. So we're optimistic that when we file the grant or we file the application, we'll get the state designation, provided they don't put unrealistic restraints on us. Then we could go to the next phase, and that's grant monies. And looking at the grants that have been allocated in the state, we think it's real competitive.
That's great. Thank you. The next agenda item, at the last meeting, we asked to put this on here, and this would be a review of the historic site application form, so that as board members, we are more able to answer questions from the public. So, I'll hand this back to you, Doug.
Okay, I'll give you a very brief overview. We basically, the first part of the application is a narrative description of generally what do we do, what's required, what is the process. So it's a fairly straightforward explanation. The next 2 pages have to do with the materials required. Basically, a copy of the designation application, plot plan of the property, public hearing, labels, project sponsor labels, and site photographs. That's the type of information we'd like to get. We don't always get it, and if need be, we'll help people try to find it. It's not something that we expect property owners to do completely on their own, but typically they need to put a little bit of effort into it. And obviously a community group or individual in the community can participate in preparing applications, so they can help property owners. The actual application, the narrative part that you actually have to fill in, the first 2 pages is very straightforward. It's just base and background information on the applicant as well as the property. The checklist format was intended to make it real easy for people. Basically describe the architectural style, the primary building materials, related features, the use of the building, things of that nature. The next page is a checklist, so that right before you bring it down, you can double check that you have everything. You'd be amazed at how many people on all applications that the Planning and Zoning Department deals with, people don't use the checklist. They come in with 1 of 10 items, and we say, I'm sorry, we can't do anything without the rest of it. And it ends up being interactive, and we try real hard to have people not only read the application but also use the checklist. The next few pages are basically just the affidavits, so that we know who's actually the applicant, and that is the application. It's pretty simple and straightforward. It may have more pages than actual work tied to it. Last year, the board felt that it was cumbersome, it was difficult, and maybe excessive. I reviewed a number of applications from other communities, and if you want to see cumbersome, excessive, and difficult, I'll show you them, especially the ones that are done online. I'm not sure I could figure out how to do it, and I'm in the business of doing applications and reviewing applications. So we didn't find anything that was simpler. This one is pretty darn straightforward, and when you take out the pages that are more explanation, there's not much information there, and the bulk of the application is checklist format. So we tried to make it real simple for people. It was last revised in 1998. We'd welcome any thoughts and direction from the commission, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I was actually very happy to take a look at this, and if any of the board members didn't receive it, you should get a copy before you leave today, because it is very straightforward, and I think it would really help us in fielding questions from the public. I know I've had a lot of questions about what it takes to actually apply, and it is not as cumbersome as I had thought. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I did hear from a recent applicant that the most difficult part was getting the public hearing labels with people within 300 feet or something. And I believe she said you had to go knock on doors and all that. Do you actually assist in getting that? That could be
Well,
difficult.
normally what we ask people to do is go to a title company, and title companies prepare those lists for cities all over the state. It's a service that they offer. Some title companies charge for the service. If you've done business with a title company, they normally provide it as a service. If somebody's having trouble with it, we can help give people examples so that they can show what needs to be done. If somebody has just totally been frustrated by title companies, we can actually do the list ourselves. We try not to do it because some of the 300-foot lists might come up with several hundred names and addresses, so we do try to outsource that. But we can help people find it and give them names of title companies that we know provide the information, because we get it all the time.
So in other words, that really shouldn't be a stumbling block for an applicant.
No, it's like everything else. I mean, somebody says application form, and the immediate reaction is, oh my gosh, it's a lot of work. And if the application requires another contact, people get discouraged. If they have any questions, on title information, all of our planners are pretty knowledgeable about how to get it from title companies. Our planning technician is very, very knowledgeable of the system. Jing, can certainly help anybody. It shouldn't be an obstacle, and what we do is tell people, if you get to a part of this application you don't understand, we're a phone call away, and we can help you figure it out and give you the information if we have it. Date built, a lot of the background material on the application we can dig out of the old permit files. And this is the only application that my office works with that does not have a fee. So it's a free application. We don't want to advertise that too much, or somebody
We
will
like
argue.
that. We like that.
Somebody will argue that we should adopt a fee, but the council has decided over the years, don't recall if it was intentional or by default, but there's no fee, and I'm not recommending a fee at this time. If we got 30 or 40 of these a year, I would say we'd have to charge a fee. We get less than an average of 2 a year, if that.
Yeah, I wish we had 30 or 40 a year.
Yeah, well, we might have 30 or 40 sites out there, but,
Yeah.
getting property owners and interest groups to go out and actually, find willing applicants is a challenge.
It's why we're talking about this, and it's why we're letting people know that it is
Mhm.
easy for everyone to be able to do. And it's not that scary,
The only challenging applications we have is when, a member of the community decides to nominate somebody else's property, and the property owner is not in agreement, and that makes a very confrontational situation. but willing applicants and, you know, with worthy properties, you know, is a fairly simple and straightforward process.
Great. Thank you very much. The next agenda item is the list that we had been asking for of the standing Class 2 historic sites. Everybody has that list. Do you have any questions about these sites?
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
it would be your pleasure, what I can do is give you just a very brief overview of the sites that I'm familiar with. There are two that I probably don't have enough information on to give you a full update. And if you'd like a little bit more, we can do a little bit more research. Some of these have interesting histories, and some of them have very well-known names of the properties that are not listed here. And then several of the properties no longer exist in their original form. But if I could work down the list, 262 Palm Canyon Drive South, House of Murphy. That building was demolished. That building originally was a small apartment hotel. Had a very colorful past in its days of operation. If you talk to some of the historians in town, it was then a restaurant, and the restaurant and building suffered in the 80s, early 80s, and it was later demolished and replaced with Fuddruckers, which was later remodeled substantially into Chillers, or the Ice House, and then it was subsequently remodeled again as it stands today as the Chop House and the Deck. So the evolution of the property has gone from a very old building. It was a Mediterranean-type restaurant.
Murphy to beef, you know?
It has moved along over the years, but you know, that property was demolished in the 80s to make way for a new building, and then that building has been remodeled at least 3 times fairly substantially to make it into what it is today. The original building was a very attractive building, but it was not very structurally sound. It was a real challenging building from an operation standpoint.
And so this designation is based on the history of the site?
It was based upon the history of the site and the activity of the site and the Class 2 designation, or, you know, at this time it probably was a different designation. Numerically, we had 7 designation classifications. It was felt that it should be recognized but not as a Class 1 site. The Carnell Building at 196 North Palm Canyon Drive. I believe, you know, it's a very strong building today, and I believe the property owner was not real comfortable with a Class 1 designation, as I recall. That one I wasn't directly involved in historic preservation back then, so I have probably less than a good report for you today as far as the full background. And I believe it still has the same property owner. The Palm Canyon Mesa Tract Gatehouse, that is the little stone gatehouse for the Gillette Estate down on South Palm Canyon Drive in the Mesa Tract, and it's a Class 2 site. India Noya Building at 232 North Palm Canyon Drive, probably best known, as I recall, as Fun in the Sun Candies. It's an older building that at the time of the designation it had some real structural concerns. It's been since retrofitted, and at one point there was a keen interest in a substantial renovation of the property that never occurred. Desert Fashion Plaza, I think we know what the current land use of that property is. It's the Desert Fashion Plaza. 123 North Palm Canyon Drive. That one was actually photographed and documented with some photographs on site. The old Desert Inn was the original site, and it had a number of commercial buildings associated with that overall site. 648, 650 North Indian Canyon. was Dr. Reed Sanitarium. It's better known, contemporary, known as the Pepper Tree. And that was a property that had been significantly altered over the years, and it was felt that a Class 1 designation was not appropriate because of those alterations in a contemporary building that was built on part of the property. And I think that everybody's aware of the renovation effort. The current property owner is trying to renovate some of the buildings. He's trying to add a restaurant and really make the property viable again. And it will probably look as good as it has for a number of years if they finish that remodel. And then the 383 Vereda Norte is the Mousy Pal residence. And that was discussed and debated as a Class 1 site. And it was felt that it should not be a Class 1, and as I recall, the property owner did not want a Class 1 designation. That completes our research. We unfortunately didn't have great records in the planning department with the changeover of staff. The records are not in great order, so we went to the city clerk's office and researched all the designations. So we think this is a complete list. Mr. Chairman, that completes an update at this point.
Thank you very much. The next agenda item is the plaque progress report from Member Rush on the Grace Miller House.
Yes, I met with Catherine Mailer, who's the owner of Neutra's Miller House, about 2 weeks ago, and we reviewed the plaque choices as were discussed in the last meeting, and she does want to use the residential size plaque, which is the 12 by 8 plaque. She believes she wants to have that plaque in aluminum, out of the two choices of aluminum and bronze, but she does want to see an example of the plaque, and we've not been able to get together to review that. But when she's in town next, we do have an example that she'll be able to look at. Everyone has a handout with the copy that we discussed. The plaque, as she would like it to read, would be Miller Minson Dyke House. I may have mangled the pronunciation of that, but 1936 to 1937. Richard Neutra, 1892 to 1970, architect, commissioned by Grace Lewis Miller. Neutra's first desert house and the first international style modern house in Palm Springs. Historic Site Preservation Board number 45 is the designation. As we discussed this, we looked at other residential plaque examples. I had a discussion with Jing regarding the use of editorial on the plaque, so that is something that we need to discuss. Some of the larger plaques that are on commercial or civic buildings do have editorial information about the historical significance of the house. I did want to ask if what the precedent is, or is there a precedent that needs to be set regarding editorial information on residential plaques? So if we could discuss that.
I wondered if it's true. Is
I
that
believe it is
okay
documented.
to ask?
Well, I believe it is, it is documented as the first Neutra structure in the desert, but I think there are only two at this point. And now as for whether it's the first international style modern house in Palm Springs, Catherine Mailer, who's the owner, does believe that it is, but I don't have confirmation or research that shows that.
From what I understand, the Schindler House that was built out here in the teens is often considered the first modern house built in the desert. I don't know. Technically, I don't know if it was within the city of Palm Springs or not, but I think this has to be verified before we would.
Yeah, how much editorial does a plaque need? So maybe that's my opinion. Pardon me for interrupting if I did.
Well, no, I think this is a very important point. And,
We want to know, though. I think we need to know.
The point of the large size plaques was to provide as much information on buildings as necessary. But with the residential plaques, they, in the past, from my understanding, they have been basically, 2 or 3 word generic descriptions of the architectural style. So. I mean, we're obviously gonna have to table this and do some research, but it'd be good to have,
Just to
members'
check.
opinions.
Yeah, just to check, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, if it's right. We would
If-
like it, probably, if it's right. I mean, unless somebody tells us it's wrong.
Well, if I could comment, Mr.
Please,
Chairman?
please do.
What, at your last meeting, we talked a little bit about the, plaquing and types of plaques, and the traditional plaque and the rectangular plaque, or the larger plaques, and we've always had a commentary, and I can tell you that anytime you editorialize about a building or the use of a building, somebody might question that. So you have to be very careful as far as your fact verification. And as you well know, in our little architectural guide, we published it with the best intention on research. We had everybody that we could research it. The minute it was published, we had lots of editorial comments about the factual nature, primarily of the history of the property and whether or not it was in perfect context. Traditionally, the small residential plaque they're very, very brief. Raymond Loewy House, built 1946, designed by Albert Frey, FAIA International Modern Style Historic Site Preservation Board number 33. They've been very, very basic. One of the things that we've talked about adding to all the plaques is a reference to the city of Palm Springs. So we would suggest that we add that so that there's a notation on the plaque and at the property that it's historic site preservation of the city. And if I could, I'll just pass this one around so you can take a look. If you start getting into the amount of text, I believe that proposed here, it may become fairly crowded, both directions. Insofar as the information that goes on. So the past practice has been small plaques, very, very concise as far as the statements that are made on it.
In response to that, we did, as we reviewed this, we did use the Loewy House as the template for the Miller House. So with the exception of the line of editorial here, I think, there are 5 lines in the Loewy House plaque. There are 5 lines, including the editorial comment here. If we take the editorial comment out, we've got 4 lines that are roughly the same size and scope as what's on the Loewy plaque. So if we're discussing, wanting to set a precedent for residential plaques going forward, I think maybe we can use this as our, opportunity to do that. And I guess I would ask if anyone has any objections to, with the exception of the editorial line, which it sounds like we're recommending not be included on the plaque, the other information and the size of the lines that would exist,
Well,
taking away that editorial line.
I do think it should say the city of Palm Springs on there. I agree. So that should be something at some point that kind of happens, and maybe we do have to make it start to happen.
Well, in that interest, would we want to add that to the historic designation line? So it would say City of Palm Springs Historic Site Preservation Board number 45, and have that as the standard going forward? Or do we feel it needs to be a separate line that just would say?
It becomes
City of Palm
more
Springs?
stuff, pardon, it does become more stuff. Do we need much more stuff on there? What does everyone else think?
I would take out the line about the desert house and First International Style, since we can't really verify that. And if we add City of Palm Springs, which I think is important to add, if we add it to the line that says Historic Site Preservation Board, it'll be a very long line and it won't fit on the plaque.
Mm.
I think it has to be a separate line. And I think it's important to say City of Palm Springs. I also think it's important to, under the name of the architect, to list the dates of that he lived, 1892, 1970, which you've done here, because then it puts the house, when it was built, in the context of the overall work of the architect. And I think adding the fact that it was commissioned by Grace Lewis Miller is an important element of this house particularly.
I agree.
And I would also say, I would agree that we remove this, this line. I mean, there are only 2 Neutra houses in the desert, so it's not like we have to identify this one as being first of
Mm.
100 houses. So,
That sounds reason, it makes it more reasonable.
I
Yeah,
think
it's a
this is-
reasonable answer.
yeah, the key things are the architect and Grace Lewis Miller. And so I would agree with putting the city of Palm Springs in place of that line.
So we need parentheses around these? I don't think we do. Okay, I don't know, offense.
I know, I think that's
to
fine.
the typer, but, all right.
No, I
maybe
agree.
let's change that.
Let's remove those.
Picky me.
If it's your pleasure, what we can do is we'll send this out to the typesetter and have them actually set it up as they would, and then we actually approve the proof.
Okay.
And that way we don't have another example in the back office used as a paperweight. It is nice, actually, it is nice to have the one for the cemetery, Wellwood Murray Cemetery in the office, because we can show it to people. The problem is we can't move it.
So to confirm then, the plaque, as we're recommending that the plaque would read, Miller Mensendijk House, 1936-1937, no parentheses. Richard Neutra, 1892 to 1970, architect, again, no parentheses. Commissioned by Grace Lewis Miller, City of Palm Springs, Historic Site Preservation Board, number 45.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, is City of Palm Springs goes before the historic, I guess
Yeah.
that's right, City of Palm Springs Historic Preservation Board. All right.
The only thing there is, I don't think any of the other plaques have City of Palm Springs, do they?
The larger ones do, the smaller ones do not.
I know, what do you think, John?
Well, this one here that says Palm Springs City Hall, it does not say City of Palm Springs.
Yeah, well, that one was one of the ones that brought about the idea of standardizing and referencing City of Palm Springs on everything.
Okay. Well, I think that's a good idea. We just need to be aware we're setting a precedent if we add it.
Well, what we've done is we've put together a little outline, and the one note was that HSPB and City of Palm Springs should be on all plaques from here
Right,
on
and
out.
that HSPB will now be spelled out,
Yeah.
which was supposed to happen on the Steelhouse homes, but it was an oversight and did not go into effect.
Yeah. Well, that's why we'd like to bring back the actual proof, so that you're comfortable with it, and, as we
Perfect.
say, these are set in bronze or
Aluminum.
It's set in,
aluminum
yeah.
steel, so once they're built, you either have it or you buy a new one.
Great,
Perfect.
Okay.
great, thank you very much. Our next agenda item is to go over the benefits and overview of the Mills Act. So I will hand this back to Doug. I know I've had a lot of questions about the Mills Act. Citizens are looking for benefits of having their property designated, and this is a possible benefit. So if we can discuss it.
Gene, this was a handout today, right? Yeah. What we've done is we've given you in your packet a historic preservation agreement. Basically is a Mills Act agreement that we've prepared for the city of Palm Springs. It meets all the criteria for the state and the county. We have two in place. One is the Perosi, I'm going to get in trouble with the chairman, Carrie Perosi House, or at least Mr. Prout would probably call and correct me. But the Carrie Perosi House on Via Escuela. This is the most recent agreement that was entered into. The only other agreement we have in town is the Kaufman Residence. So we have two in town. The fundamental issue in this type of agreement, in agreeing to this agreement and some of the conditions of the agreement that we put in, which are fairly straightforward. We ask that the property be maintained, that things not be changed appreciably, that we work with the property owner on any changes, and that the plaque be in a visible location for the public, are two of the key items that we put in. Relative to that agreement, the property owner gets a tax break. It's roughly 50% of your property taxes. So it gives you a little bit of reward, for going into a program and basically saying you're going to commit the property to historic preservation. It's our understanding, and if it's correct, it's good news for the community. The share of property taxes that are relieved are the county's share, not the city's share. So it really becomes more of a county-supported program from a finance standpoint. To help the board, today we handed out basically some information relative to the Mills Act Property Tax Abatement Program. So if somebody wants to see a little bit more, they can do that. And what I'd suggest is if you want to give this out, even though there's a Redwood City Mills Act information package, you should probably hand out the one that we provided. But it gives an overview of the Mills Act. It gives you an ability to do a mathematical calculation relative to how your property taxes might be reduced. And then it actually gives you the code sections. We would encourage anybody that's interested in doing this to share the information with their tax advisor, whomever that might be, to make sure that it actually works for them. We've had some commercial properties take a look at it, and the feedback we've gotten on each one is when you read the fine print, you really understand it. There's a likelihood that your property taxes could go up over time beyond what they would normally. So the feedback we're getting from commercial property owners is it probably isn't advantageous to the property owners, and we don't have any for commercial properties. But Mr. Chairman, that's an overview. It's really one that's available, and if somebody's interested, they should be referred to us, and we can take a look at it. The property has to be a Class 1 designated site, and the people have to be willing to live with some fairly lengthy restrictions, but they're fairly straightforward, and really the intent is to maintain the property for the term of the agreement, as well as to maintain the plaque. And one of the things we put in this agreement is if the plaque is removed for any purposes, the owner is responsible to replace it. So it really shifts that burden to the property owner. Whereas technically, without the agreement, if the plaque were to be removed, there's really no understanding between the city and the actual property owner who's responsible for that plaque. In most cases, you'd have to move part of the structure or boulders on the property. They're mounted on pretty good. You'd make a little bit of noise trying to chisel one off.
So the reason we only have 2 Mills Act properties is just because of lack of interest from?
Well, it's an issue that we've had 2 property owners request it.
Mhm.
Just must be it must be awareness too, isn't it?
Well, I don't think
How
the
do
city's
you-
gone out and tried to sell it. Up until recently, we've kind of expected that the loss of property tax probably is the city's share of the property tax. We only get roughly, depending on where you're at in town, about 19 to 20% of the overall property tax. So, we've not gone out to really push it, unless you're concerned that we might have property owners with Class 1 sites that would alter the properties or do something that we would normally put in the agreement. I'm not sure there's a great public need to push it, but it's available, and the city council's been willing to enter into the agreements with property owners.
Good, that's what we need to know, and all of our television viewers. That's what people do need to know.
So Jing is our current expert on the Mills Act. She has done 50% of all the work the city's done on the Mills Act, and I'm pleased to say that the contract that we put together for the Carrie Perosi property is pretty much the same contract we did with the Kaufman House. It didn't change much. We tailored it a little bit more, to this property, and I think that it's a pretty straightforward agreement, and it's probably pretty good for a property owner of residential properties.
Right, any other questions about the Mills Act? Okay. Thank you very much, Doug. The last agenda item is a discussion of the City Council Cabinet meeting, which is this Thursday, October 10th. And I guess I'll be attending the Cabinet Council meeting. And we don't have very much to report to the council. Since the last meeting, we haven't moved forward on any designations. But if I get a chance, if I get any airtime, I'd be happy to make a call for the public to come forward with possible designations. Are there any points the board would like brought up at this meeting?
Is the board familiar with the council cabinet? Okay,
No, and that's the perfect question.
okay,
Would you like to explain it?
sure.
Briefly.
Yeah. In the early days, when the sea was forming, the council cabinet is basically made up of each commission and their chairs or co-chairs or appointee for the evening. So you have all of the boards and commissions of the city sitting around the table in this room, and each board gets to make a presentation or report update as to what they've been working on to the full council cabinet. The full city council also attends, so it really is a working meeting. And the idea behind it was that the council has a very, very extensive network of advisors. There virtually are very few operations of the city that don't have tie to a board or commission. Today, there's been a lot of criticism that there's not enough community involvement in decision-making. And I think part of the cabinet's purpose is to, at least quarterly, let people know how many people actually advise the city council. It's not just the staff, it's the council cabinet and then the respective boards and commissions. And as you well know, on the commission appointment and thank you dinner that you all went to, it's a fairly large room at the convention center that's full of people that advise, and they're all community members. So sometimes people forget, the network that really goes into advising the city council on a number of decisions that are made throughout the community. It's an interactive discussion. It has a general agenda, and then occasionally the council or the city manager will put a topic of interest on, and there'll be a specific presentation on it, and then the full council can comment. Some of the meetings are very quick, some of them are fairly lengthy. Some commissions make very extensive presentations, most notably the Public Arts Commission, because most of their work is obviously graphic and visual, and they're very proud of what they do, and they should be. They do a great job. Airport Commission has been reporting to the degree they can about airport security and changes at the airport. And it's a good time for the community to get a feel for the amount of changes that the past year have brought about in transportation at airports. And it's really affecting a lot of other operations that most of the public doesn't even know about. But it's a good forum, and the chairman, vice chairman, or an appointee usually attends. Mr. Chairman, that's an overview of it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
The last council meeting that I attended was actually very informative. There was a long, quite lengthy presentation on the progress for the possible additions to the convention center. And it was a very interesting and more in-depth information than you get from viewing council meetings or what you read in the paper. So it can be very informative.
Mr. Chairman, if there's probably a couple of items that you might want to consider giving the council an update on. One is the fact that the board is predominantly new members, and that we've been spending the past couple of months primarily doing orientation and getting the board kind of grounded in the history of what's occurred. And if there's anything that you think is specifically pertinent in that kind of general topic, you could add it. The other one you might want to report about Louise's Pantry.
Right.
And, the council has been concerned about the building, and, so I've been giving them updates on the progress of construction, and, the council is concerned that, how do we prevent a contractor from going in with a sledgehammer and knocking out historic tiles?
Yes.
And short of having construction police, which is a complete different job description than building inspectors, it's pretty difficult. But one of the things that we're going to institute at staff level is pre-construction meetings on those projects. So at least there's an opportunity at the front end to try and convey to everybody the sensitivity, and try to do that on site with the building inspector as well as planning staff. Somebody with a sledgehammer can do things to a building that we can't prevent. So it's unfortunate that occurred, and they paid economically, because after they picked out of the trash all the unbroken tiles, they realized the tiles were very expensive to fabricate replicas of. The other one is that the RFP for the historic site survey has been approved by the board, and it does have to be approved by the city council. And Jane, when are we scheduling that first meeting in November? So that'll be before the council, first meeting in November. And, obviously we won't have that survey funded until the project at South Sunrise and Ramon goes forward. But that's an item that you might want to report to the council. Not only did the HSPB look at it, a number of the local private historic groups looked at it, as well as SHPO. So, I mean, we couldn't probably get a broader review of that. We incorporated virtually everybody's comments into the RFP.
Great.
Those are just some key issues in looking at past agendas and things that are pertinent in the community right now.
Thank you very much for the suggestions.
Mr. Evans, there was some discussion about the age requirement, 45 years or older, in the RFP. Was that changed?
We're going to address that at the council level, and I think we'll probably, we'll have to put a statement in there, but it is the ordinance, so it's a little bit awkward at this time. It's one of the things that the ordinance needs to be changed to fix. But we typically don't do single item changes of ordinances when we know that there are other things that probably need to be worked on too.
And could you give us an update on the project and the funding, so we might know when this actually might be funded by the developers?
Well, as I'll tell you, with all private construction projects, it will start when the developer's ready. And they're not ready right now. Most of the plan checking is well underway and progress being made. It's very close to some of the permits. Some of the public works improvements will probably start ahead of the building. Some of the street improvements and things like that. The most problematic and complex issue has been dealing with the flood control channel and how that will be capped, and then how you might phase construction around it. Originally, the developer was hoping that they could build the new grocery store and drugstore first, cap the channel, and then demolish the old store and keep it open. That probably is just logistically impossible to do for a number of reasons. So they've been trying to look at how they do a fairly complicated project and a lot of different factors that you normally don't have when you start with a flat site and you build from ground up. This one's a little more complicated.
At what point does the funding become available, though? Are the funds made available when the building permit is issued?
I believe it's when the building permit is issued.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on then to the board and staff reports. Do any board members have things they'd like to report on?
I'd like to pass out copies of this map as well. Hopefully all of you have seen it. This was put together by the Public Arts Commission,
Yes.
and it is free to the public. It is a map that is entitled Public Art and Historic Site Tour Map. It's available at City Hall. I'm not sure if it's yet available at the Tourism Visitor Centers on Palm Canyon, but it should be in the near
It is.
future. It lists interestingly, two buildings that are also listed on the modern map in Palm Springs, which in both cases were deemed significant architecturally. And one is what is now the Washington Mutual Bank building, formerly Coachella Valley Savings and Loan, at 499 South Palm Canyon Drive. And that was East Stewart Williams building. And then also the Bank of America building, formerly City National Bank, which was built in 1959, 588 South Palm Canyon Drive. There are a number of buildings on both maps that I think are interesting and architecturally significant that do not have Class 1 status, and I would hope that the owners would consider that. Again, the map is free.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other reports from board members or staff reports?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am very pleased to report and introduce you to our newest planner. Kathy Marks comes to us from Roseburg, Oregon, and she's got a master's degree in planning that also includes focus on historic town planning. She's worked with state offices regarding historic preservation, although not in California. And one of her first assignments is to help us with the Francis Stevens Park application to the state. And she's already made contacts in Sacramento and is working very hard on putting that information together. And she's also going to be helping us with current planning and permit processing, things of that nature. But we're very pleased to have her, and I'd like to introduce her, Kathy Marks.
Welcome.
Be here, and I suppose I should do this. It is a pleasure to be here. I'm really looking forward to helping Jing on the Francis Stevens School. That's a wonderful project, and we hope to get with that really soon so we can proceed with any grant funding that we may be able to obtain for that once we have a California registered designation. So, I encourage any of you to call me if you can't get a hold of Jing, because she's such a busy beaver, and give me any of your questions or anything that may come by, and it would certainly be a learning experience for me too. I really need to get up to snuff here in California and understand some of your state mandates, etc. Mills Act included. So.
Great.
Again, thanks, yeah, welcome.
Okay,
I
any
have
further?
One more
Yes.
item. We put together a list of the board members and staff contacts, and we need some direction from the board as to how you would prefer that we provide information to the public. Many of the boards and commission members would prefer that they not get phone calls at home. So if that is the case, I need to know that, and what we'll do is we'll put the City Hall address, the City Hall phone number. I mean, technically, you're public officials for the City of Palm Springs. And what we need is direction on how you would like to be addressed in the community. We get calls occasionally that people want lists of board and commission members. Right now, this will only be used for internal purposes so that we have it, but we do get requests where people want to know who the board members are, and I can tell you the majority of planning commissioners prefer to have calls come to City Hall. Then we call the board or commission member, and then at your pleasure, you can either ask us to return the phone call because we are your staff, or you can return the call. And we certainly want your guidance as to whether or not you want addresses given out to the public. It's really your pleasure. You can either do that individually or based upon direction of the full board. We can handle everybody the same way. It's your pleasure, but we do need direction as to how you'd like that handled.
Well, I, for one, am happy to have the questions come through the City Hall. I don't have any problem with my name being listed as being on the board. I think that's public record, but I would prefer any questions be routed through the planning department.
Home address?
No.
Okay,
And that's the same for me.
okay.
I agree also. That's fine.
I would say the same too.
Let's.
Okay. That's unanimous.
As
It's
long
a-
as we all know, in case we have to call each other, or invite me to something good. If you're having something good, invite me and let me know.
And what we will do is call the other two members and get their direction. It's best that we get this worked out before you have a real controversial item.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure any industrious person could track us down,
Sure.
but they don't need any help.
Those have only been given to the members and all of our key staff so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know in the past, the information has been given to the Historical Society, and I don't have any problem with organizations like that. Okay, unless there's any further reports, we will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you very much.
much.